Hello plant friends, it's Alanya here and welcome to my tiny balcony here in suburban Sydney, Australia, where I'm learning to grow cold, cool and intermediate orchids with just me, my orchids and Mother Nature. It is a beautiful afternoon here in suburban Sydney. It's warm, it's bright, and if you can hear traffic, I apologise, I live on a busy road. If you're new here, welcome and thank you for finding me and pressing play. I want to talk about this. Now, this, yes, it's a Phalaenopsis, and yes, it's a sick Phalaenopsis. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is a supermarket Phalaenopsis, so it already has a dozen different things going against it. Planted in sphagnum moss, possibly for 2 years, cramped in a smaller glass container, overwatered, drowning, not fed enough, not enough nutrients, not enough light, and it was pushed to press blooms. However, I want to talk about what I've got it in. Moving this around, we can see there's water in the bottom of this glass jar. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this plant before I talk about what's going on here. Last week, one of my work colleagues called me and said, I've got a friend who has 2 very sick orchids in a glass jar planted in sphagnum moss. And they've dropped all of their flowers, their leaves are looking sad, limp and kind of wrinkly, and I don't know what to do about it. Can you help? So me being me said, sure. If you pull it out of the sphagnum moss, throw the sphagnum moss away, clean the jar, dry everything off, cut any decaying or dead roots off. So she brought it over on Sunday and there were 2 plants. And one of the 2 plants was definitely better looking than the other. And that one just needed a soak in some sea salt for a little bit, potted in some fresh media, and that one went home that day. But this one was the not so grand of the 2. This one has limp leaves, it lost a lot of its roots, and essentially it is dying. Well, it's trying to, and I'm trying to not let it die. So I thought, how am I going to try and fix this? So in the interim, from when she called me to when she came over, I watched Danielle's Orchid Ranch and I got the idea from Danielle over there. I want to just talk about water culture. Water culture is the practice of growing or rehabbing orchids in water with nutrients. It takes away all of the planting media and you put them in a glass or transparent jar so that you can see what the roots are doing, if they're rehydrating or if they're not rehydrating, if the water's got floaties. But moreover, Phalaenopsis roots are green when they're well hydrated, and Phalaenopsis roots photosynthesize, thus providing the plant another source of nutrients and food. There are 2 ways of growing in water culture. The first is full water culture, where the roots of each plant are suspended in a small amount of water so that the plant can take up water and nutrients as needed, but only the growing tip of the roots. And that is all of the time. The other style is partial water culture, where you, for a short period of time, suspend the same roots in the same water, but for a reduced amount of time, 24 to say 48 hours at the most. Then you remove the roots from the water and then you let them sit for 5 days. The idea of this is that the roots are exposed to water hydrating the plant, but it also mimics the natural environment that these plants grow in, where they get water and then they get periods of dry, water, periods of dry. These plants are native to Southeast Asia, which has a monsoonal weather system. So these plants tend to do better with a wet-dry cycle rather than continually wet. But that comes with a caveat. All plants are different. Every plant is as individual as every human, and they have their own likes and dislikes. The thicker root type orchids like the Phalaenopsis, they do better in a partial water culture, whereas the finer roots, that be the Oncidiums, They tend to do better in a full water culture. Their roots dry out a lot quicker, so thus they need a little bit more access to water. Welcome to the tiny kitchen, and here in front of me on the bench I have a few things. First of all, I have my glass jar, and in my glass jar I've simply mixed up some demineralized water, and I've added the barest amount of some orchid food, and this one has 22% nitrogen, 3.7% phosphorus, and potassium of 14%. So not specifically for flowers, but if the plant decided to throw a flower spike, well, we could support that. The other thing I've added is a single grain of Epsom salts. Magnesium is a macronutrient for the plants. Stirred that all up and put about 1.5 to 2 centimeters of water in the bottom of the jar. Now, the benefit of a glass jar is twofold. One, you can see immediately what is going on with the plant and the plant roots. If there's any problems, you haven't got any bark obscuring your view, so you can see immediately what is going on. The other reason to do the glass vessel is that the roots of the Phalaenopsis photosynthesize, and this allows the plant to photosynthesize using the roots. It doesn't do all of its photosynthesis by roots, obviously, but it does do some. Now, when I clean this plant up, I did a couple of things. First of all, I cut the base of the stem out up to about 0.5 centimeter below the lowest subterranean root. The reason I did this was this plant has viable roots. So while they are a little bit dry at the top up here and a bit desiccated, the inside filament is still going to be nice and soft. So that will help deliver nutrients and hydration to the plant. And there's two roots that would do that. One is less desiccated than the other, but I didn't want to stress the plant out even more. The next thing happening is we have a couple of new aerial roots. This one's facing down, so this one could grow out and down into the media. And then there's actually another teeny tiny little one on the other side in between the leaf nodes here. We can see these leaves are very, very limp and floppy and quite striated. The plant is pulling energy from these leaves in order to try and save itself and grow these new roots and this baby leaf coming through here. The leaves being floppy, that's unlike, this is a healthy leaf, so this leaf is very green, it's very shiny, it's very plump, it's almost rubbery like, so this is and it's very upright, so this is a very healthy plant. What the aim is here is to promote these roots to grow. We can see this particular leaf, this is the oldest of the leaves, it is the bottom leaf here to the roots, and this leaf is actually starting to turn brown. And everything I can tell, the plant is taking all of its reserves, like other orchids have pseudobulbs that store the carbohydrate energy. These plants store the energy in their very plump leaves. So leaves are going to be one of the first things to go when the plant is trying to save itself. I'm not going to take this leaf off. It hasn't really changed a lot of colour, and the plant is using this as energy. So we're going to leave that there. But know that this one is going to be sacrificed at the end when the plant has started to recover. To start with water culture, what I've done is I've got my jar of water, and I'm simply going to drop the two roots that do fall vertically straight into the glass jar there. And I'm just going to set the roots in there, and that's it. I'm just going to leave the plant with the roots in the water for 48 hours to give the plant some hydration. And then I'm just going to tip that water out and leave it dry for 5 days. And then I will come back with my teapot of water, my orchid food, and maybe next time a little bit of calcium in the water so that the plant takes even more macronutrients to help build new leaves and roots. that is really the basics of horticulture. I'm going to take you now back to the dining room table where I'll show you where I'm going to put this for the next few months, and hopefully we will have some updates as well. Well, plant friends, now we're back on the dining room table. I thought I'd show you where this plant's going to live for the next couple of months while it recovers, in the east-facing window where it gets about half an hour of the sun in the morning, which is just perfect for this plant. So that is the beginning for the rescue using horticulture. And if you would like to follow along on this little orchid's recovery process, please feel free to hit the subscribe button below with the notifications turned on so that you can be notified every time I upload. If you have made it this far, please let me know in the comments below if you have used horticulture before. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.